What's up, everybody? Brothers, sisters, psychonauts, and seekers of truth. It is Ananka, and welcome to my bazaar. Today, I have a DiPT chirp report for you. The title of this chirp report is Energies Were Communicating With Me, and was submitted to Erowid in 2003 by the user Morning Glory Seed. With all that being said, let our story begin. 5/25/2003. Perhaps a half hour before the substance was ingested. I'm not really too certain what to expect tonight, but I sure am getting excited. This especially tends to happen when I am trying a new material for the first time. I have had this chemical for a few years now, but I never got around to tasting it because until a few recent reports I have read, DiPT seemed like nothing more than a mere novelty drug. There was never much of an interest in trying it, just so I could hear people's voices sound like frogs and robots. But a curiosity sparked by recent reports written after Tikal, which suggested it was more than just an auditory distorter, as well as the gentle encouragement of a few folks I know whom have sampled the material and loved it had finally gotten to me. Now, after all this time, I am ready to give this stuff a go. I don't want it to be too intense, since it is my first try with the drug, but I think 70 milligrams will be enough to provide full effects without bowing me over. I tend to be very sensitive to tryptamines, and actually most psychedelics when I think about it, so I am sure I'll get to where I want to be with this dosage. Oh well, it is all out of my hands now, as the dose level has been already decided, and the substance has already been weighed out and encapsulated. The pure white crystalline material has a slight indole smell, but nowhere near as pungent as DPT or AMT's overwhelming odor. It reminds me more of the smoother scent of DMT. I am sharing this material, as well as the evening, with M, who is a newer friend of mine. He is no stranger to the psychedelic experience, but is also trying DiPT for the first time. This will be our second trip together, and it is always a joy to do this sort of thing with new people. Our first psychedelic experience was a couple of months ago, and it involved a few grams of dried psilocybin mushrooms, and then some ketamine during the come-down. It served as a great bonding experience for both of us, and we had an absolutely profound and fantastic time. It was my first time with psychedelic mushrooms in many years, and I had forgotten how good they really are. But that will have to be for another report. Anyway, it is a beautiful night here in Colorado. Very mild temperatures, and there is no wind to bring us a chill. Perfect for exploring nature. The sky is slightly overcast, so the moon and stars are covered up for the most part. But there is still plenty of light for us to see. I'm not too worried. The dilated pupils that will no doubt result from DiPT ingestion are sure to make us more sensitive than usual to the darkness of the night. Our plans are to eat the capsules, smoke a little pot, and then take a walk to wherever our legs decide to bring us. We each get into some warmer clothes for the evening hike and begin to enjoy a nice bowl of marijuana. Perhaps a half hour later, we are both feeling something, but it is not really a reaction I can readily define. I notice some body warmth, generalized feelings of happiness for simply being with my friend, and my two pet cockatiels who are on my shoulder, and also just for being alive. I guess this feeling can be called a gentle euphoria. The bowl of pot is finished, so we're going to take off on our walk. The day after, wow, DiPT exceeded any and all of my wildest expectations. Em and I began our walk and felt nothing more than the initial warmth I mentioned for some time. Both of us even commented at one point during the hike that the night might have been much more interesting had we each taken 100 milligrams of DiPT instead of just 70. The effects stayed at this mild level for at least an hour. The only other thing I noticed in the beginning was that everything appeared to be normal, yet somehow things were different. It was though I was seeing the world from a different point of view, although things didn't actually look any different. My friend commented that he noticed none of this beyond the feeling of warmth in his body. Em had decided to take us to a park he was familiar with, in the hopes that the frogs would be out singing and looking for a mate, which would obviously be interesting with the audio distortions DiPT is known to produce. The walk we were going to take was approximately 2.5 miles long, but I am a regular bicycle rider in excellent shape, so I did not worry or anticipate any troubles. At some point during the hike, we both began to notice a distinct tryptamine body buzz. I even noticed some mild trailing and color enhancement when I looked hard enough for it. There were also some closed-eye visuals that I can only describe as flashes of light and energy. It reminded me of a stroboscope. M said he noticed the CEVs somewhat, and commented that my voice seemed a little lower to him. And soon after he said that, I noticed the same in his voice as well. However, my own speech still sounded normal to me. After a good hour or so of walking, we reached the park M had wanted to visit, and went to find a nice place to sit and chill. Unfortunately, there were only a few frogs singing that night because of the cloud cover and lack of any significant moonlight. The frogs sounded normal to my ears, but our voices were definitely becoming more and more altered as each moment went by. They sounded deeper and a bit muffled. It was as if the middle and higher frequencies of our voices' sound spectrum had been filtered out, allowing only the lower ones to be heard. I was reminded very much of running my voice through an electronic graphic equalization device. We sat down on a bench, and then all at once the DiPT hit me very strongly. A powerful wave took over me, and I went from a mild +1 to an impressively strong +2 in the space of perhaps 5 minutes. We were in the middle of a local park, listening to the frogs and talking to each other. At this point, I did not notice a whole lot in the way of audio distortions, other than the vocal changes, but the general intensity of the experience was rapidly climbing to a very powerful and unexpected degree of power. Although the effect of DiPT was nothing at all like that of MDMA, it is the only material I can think of that reminded me of the rushiness, mild sensory enhancement, and empathetic feelings toward M that I experienced during this phase of the intoxication. The main difference, though, from MDMA, apart from the audio changes, was that this psychedelic didn't have the seemingly forced positive mood direction of MDMA. Although I did feel absolutely fantastic, and was thoroughly enjoying myself in every way. Another difference was that there was a distinct tryptamine feeling, instead of MDMA's amphetamine/phenethylamine feel. Em and I sat on the park bench for what seemed to be a timeless period, and engaged in some of the deepest and most insightful conversations we have ever had between the two of us. It felt so absolutely delightful to just lay back and listen to what he had to say. At times it almost seemed as though my sole existence were the words we spoke. By this time, I was fully under the influence of the drug, and now was at a complete and intense +3. I was absolutely shocked. I expected nothing more than audio distortions and a body buzz from this material, but I was experiencing a full-blown psychedelic trip of incredible intensity. I'd completely lost track of the time, so I have no idea how long we actually remained in the park, but eventually we decided to continue on with our hike. M had a place in mind that he said was full of energies from old souls and that we should go there. Though it was located behind an active factory, he believed I would be impressed with the area. I agreed without a second thought, so off we headed to this place that I had never seen. Walking was a little difficult for me because it was dark and my gait was a little unsteady. M had no trouble walking, and he commented that the DiPT made his eyes much more sensitive to the dark. Although we had both taken the exact same dosage, we were obviously on two different levels. I felt a little bad about it, in fact, because I was so immersed in the effects of the drug, while M experienced very little besides the audio changes, a body buzz, and some minor closed-eye visuals. I think it simply came down to the fact that this night was just not the time for his peak experience. In a sense, it was good that it worked out as it did, because he played the role of the guide. I was certainly in no condition to direct us anywhere. Although I was completely familiar with the hiking trail we were on, as it is a part of my almost daily bicycle route, I would have been very lost without his help. Eventually, we made our way to the spot behind the factory that M had in mind, which was next a very fast-flowing creek. The water was incredibly high due to the large amount of rain our drought-stricken state had been blessed with recently. We found a rock right next to the water, and we both sat down. I think it was at this point that I really began to peak. The intensity was still shocking to me. I could see and feel what felt like ancient energies all around me. Thoughts flowed through my head like the water in the stream. I was able to think so clearly about my life and the current direction it seemed to be heading towards. I knew this was a very special place to be in. I was quite uncoordinated when it came to handling objects in the dark, so I asked M to pack us a bowl of marijuana, to which he happily obliged. We smoked it, and then M announced he wanted a few moments to be alone. I was completely fine with that, and he took off a little further down the creek, leaving me alone on the rock to be with my thoughts. This is when a very special event occurred. I had already felt the presence of several different energies around me since we had arrived, but I paid no real attention to them. Colorado is full of these energies, so it was nothing too unusual for me. In the past, I have had some incredible paranormal contacts in the mountains, and most of those times were without the aid of a psychedelic. But now that I was away from M, these energies decided to interact directly with me. There was the distinct feeling that I was no longer alone, though at no time did this frighten me. I knew that these were benevolent spirits, and they meant me no harm, nor did I mean them any. But I was in their territory, and they were curious as to who I was and what I was doing there. I closed my eyes, and I could see various forms of light and energy moving in organized fashions. Each movement seemed to have meaning, though I was unable to really make sense of it all. Some of the energies were communicating with me through a series of tones, beeps, and clicks. It was a method of communication that I had never even dreamed about. This was very computer-like, yet it sounded completely natural and organic. I closed my eyes again, sat on my rock, prayed, and sent positive vibes and energy to these beings, and immediately I felt them returning the same happy vibes right back to me. At this point, I think I was flirting with the rare and blessed +4. Although in the purest sense of the matter, I strongly believe all things in the universe are interconnected. These energies were not any kind of an extension of myself. It was something beyond my soul and beyond my regular existence. These were the true locals of the area, and they were investigating who I was and what I had come there for. After some time, M had come back from his journey upstream, and I suggested we make our way home, as we had a long walk ahead of us. I really wanted to get back before the drug wore off, so I could explore the effect of DiPT on music. M reported he felt very little from the material anymore, save for the deepening of our voices. But the mild closed-eye visuals and mental introspection he noticed earlier was definitely coming to an end. I noticed a decline in the physical effects of the drugs, mainly the tryptamine body buzz and the open and closed-eye visuals. But the effects of the substance on my own voice, for some reason, seemed to become even stronger. Now it was seemingly not only lowered an octave or so, but the actual tonality and harmonic structure also was rapidly changing in quite a dramatic fashion. I just could not get over how my brain was processing sound, and I had to repeatedly ask M if my voice sounded normal to him. He reported each time that it seemed slightly lower than usual, but for the most part it sounded as it always did. But the changes I heard were so dramatic I could scarcely fathom it was only in my head, and I was totally flabbergasted. Of course I acknowledged the DiPT produced the changes, but one can never really understand how dramatically such changes in audio perception will affect them until they personally experience it. I knew DiPT would be a unique substance, but this was beyond anything from even my wildest dreams. Eventually, after a slightly exhausting walk and a few more bowls of pot, we made it back to my apartment. By this time, M was feeling next to nothing from the DiPT, and I was mostly down too, or so I thought. I decided to put on some music to examine the most well-known aspect of the drug. What happened next was as profound and dramatic to me as meeting the energies by the stream earlier in the trip. The first recording I put in was from Jefferson Airplane's debut record, The Jefferson Airplane Takes Off. When I heard the first tube-distorted guitar notes of Let Me In, my eyes opened wide and then my jaw literally dropped to the floor in complete shock and amazement. The guitar sounded as if the signal was being run through a digital octave device, a cheap, low-quality one at that. It sounded tinny and synthetic, and it had what sounded like digital clipping blips. Digital clipping occurs when music is recorded louder on a digital recorder than the device is capable of receiving, resulting in a prominent clicking noise. I think I listened to that song 3 or 4 times in a row just out of sheer amazement. I just could not believe a chemical could cause such distortions. Unfortunately, M experienced none of this. To him, the recordings sounded as they always did. After hearing a few more songs from that record, I put on White Rabbit from Jefferson Airplane's second album. Again, the changes produced from the DiPT were dramatic. Grace Slick actually sounded like a man. Interestingly enough, not all noises seemed to be affected by the DiPT. The drums in the beginning of the first song, She Has Funny Cars, seemed as they always did. But when Jorma's guitar began to play, it seemed to be at least an octave lower than normal, and it sounded completely out of tune. I understood what someone meant when they said of DiPT intoxication, harmony does not exist. It would have been interesting to record some of our own music. I am a music producer and have a home recording studio, but we were both exhausted from the long walk and didn't feel like doing too much but sitting. Eventually I turned off the music, and Em and I smoked some more pot. We talked for a bit about our experiences, and then M said he was ready for bed. He retired to my guest bedroom, and I turned on the news to catch up with the world. I took 3 milligrams of melatonin and some Calms Forte, an herbal sleeping pill that contains hops and passion flower, and eventually drifted off to sleep with no difficulty. I slept well throughout the night. In the morning, we both felt well rested, and M was sweet enough to take us out and treat us to a nice breakfast. There was no washed-out feeling or hangover at all. On the contrary, I felt absolutely euphoric and grateful for what I had experienced. M said he was a little disappointed that he did not get more effects from the DiPT, but said he was happy to be my guide. Anyway, he said, there was always a next time, and there will be for sure. Conclusion. I must say that I am really very, very impressed with DiPT. Although one exposure is not enough to judge the value of any compound, I really think for me that this one may be a keeper. In other words, it is the one I would actually use for the purpose of obtaining insights and problem solving. So far, there have only been a few of the exotic synthetic psychedelics I have tried that I can really say fit into this category. 2CI, 2CT7, DiPT, and methylone come to mind as being materials I feel are just as good as the classic, tried, tested, and true entheogens like LSD, MDMA, mescaline, and psilocybin. Usually with the exotic chemicals, I take them 2 or 3 times for the purpose of evaluating what they do for me, and seeing if they have the possibilities of producing consistent and valuable entheogenic experiences with minimal disturbing side effects. If I find that they do not, I simply forget about them and move on. And I must admit, I really enjoy being a guinea pig. I am aware I am stepping into uncharted waters and taking unknown risks, but I also think highway driving is near suicide, and I live in a small town without one. So it all balances out. This trip occurred at a point in my life where I am going through some major life changes. I have moved out to be on my own, and for the first time ever in my life, I do not live with another person. Previously, I've either resided with my parents or a girlfriend. One really gets to know whom they are when they live alone, and I have learned things about myself that I am not sure I could have under any other circumstances. I am also about to enter graduate school, which means my dream of becoming a licensed private psychotherapist is going to come true. A new chapter has begun. This DiPT experience allowed me access to some fantastic personal insights, which have proven to be very valuable to me in these existing circumstances, and my current quest to finally become my own independent person. I am forever grateful for what I have learned that night. I don't know if this experience with the DiPT was just a one-time rare gift from the universe, or I am somehow ultra-sensitive to this compound, and I had what is, for me, a typical reaction to the dosage I took. I'm going to wait a good few months, and try to find out by taking the same dosage in as similar a setting as possible before the summer months, and the beautiful weather they bring comes to an end. One final comment is warranted. I did not have any real negative side effects from DiPT. At points, there was what I would call a tummy rumble, which basically means slight nausea. But that was so mild, it is hardly worth mentioning. At times, I also had a bit of a bloated, gassy feeling in my lower stomach. But again, it was very mild, and not much of an annoyance at all. The body high itself felt great. There was a clean feeling tryptamine buzz, but with a little unique flavor all its own. Also, neither M nor I noticed any auditory distortions the next day. Other reports had suggested that they could last up to 24 hours. I hope subsequent experiments prove as interesting and valuable as this one. It's nice to have new allies. Alright, everybody. That is the end of our story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Share with us your DiPT experiences down in the comments below. Check out the other videos and playlists on my channel, and I will see you in the next one, fam. Deuces.